Hello, Carrie.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
Fine. You look wonderful.
Thank you. You look good too. And I think that we are live right this second. And so
right.
I'm gonna actually fill the screen with your face. So
okay. Let's hope it doesn't break the screen.
Yeah, bear with me as I do this, as I attempt to do this. And then what I'll do beyond that is to, whoops. Oh God. Okay, here we go. Okay. And so at this moment, we are live. And I'm just double checking my my other computer here. So this should work. It's weird. Okay, someone's telling me they can hear us and we're live. Okay, beautiful. All right.
Not on Memorex.
So, hi everyone. This is Carrie Cassidy, Project Camelot, and we're about to have a very interesting discussion with Mike Sparks, who is the author of James Bond is Real, and I think a few other books as well. And
yeah, Air Max Strike, Asymmetric Maneuver Warfare for the 21st Century. That's a military reform book.
Okay, great. And at the moment, this is going to be it. Just Mike and I, and we're going to just sort of talk about the symbolism in James Bond and see where this takes us. And
Here's
Mike,
my military reform book.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
And so Mike is obviously a stellar researcher. He also works in the aerospace industry, don't you? Still have a job in the aerospace industry?
Well, not right now, but I have worked in the defense industry. I'm unfortunately suffering a little McCarthyism going on there. We'll talk about that on another day.
Oh, really?
But,
okay.
You know, there's a lot of things that we try to do that are positively good, but some people don't necessarily want what's best for everybody. Like, we all assume that everyone wants what's best for the U.S. military. Not so.
Okay.
Sadly.
All right.
There's a form of military operation that continues that makes a lot of people rich and gets a lot of people killed and wounded. But it's not really true military efficiency. True military efficiency would be smothering the conflict and ending it and bringing everyone home back as soon as possible and getting the combatants to perpetually.
Okay, so we're already having a few anomalous audio issues happening on our end, but we're going to just continue on and hopefully what I'd ask the people in the chat.
I just girded up my loins here on my headset, so it picks up my sound a little bit better.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
I hear you fine.
Okay, I'm going to ask the people in the chat to keep an eye on the picture here, and if we do freeze up on live stream, as sometimes happens, they can let us know.
Okay, good.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And then that way we'll know we're off the air, and we may have to redial you a few times, so that shouldn't be a problem for us at our end. We've done this a number of times during shows, and we can continue on from there. So at the moment, what I'd like to start off with, though, Mike, is basically to get your background. I know some people are going to definitely know who you are. We have had a link on the announcement to your background, but just for the sake of the video itself, people will be watching this as I move it to YouTube. I have a huge YouTube audience of subscribers, something in the vicinity of over 60,000 YouTube subscribers who will have the potential of seeing this. So not all of them may know who you are, and hopefully we'll get it to go even beyond those subscribers. And so this audience we're talking to right now may not even reflect the eventual audience that this video could get. So with all of that in mind, what we'd like to do is get your background from the beginning. If you could give an overview of something of what you've done in the past in your work life, and then how you got into the James Bond sort of symbolism and idea.
I began as a United States Marine Corps Reserve enlisted men in the infantry right out of high school. And while I was in that realm, I noticed that we had problems with the soldiers' load. We were carrying too much equipment, and we were not moving fast enough. Obviously, you can compare that to Vietnam, where the enemy was running circles around us. So that was the first thing that came to my mind. Then we weren't even fighting well against the environment. One drill weekend, it rained the entire drill weekend, and it was up in the upper Midwest, and I got hypothermia. And that was because the poncho that they issued us was delaminating. So that near-death experience taught me that there has to be a better way. So my first early part of my career was to solve the soldier's load, get the weight under 50 pounds per man so we can move at 4 to 7 miles an hour, get the equipment lightweight so it overlaps, so we're not carrying one item for one task and one item for another task, one item for another task. Then you got 100 pounds of lightweight equipment. Instead, I say let's get some intelligent overlap so we have one item that does 2 or 3 things well, and then we can cut the weight down and also not be killed by the earth. I call that the battle against the earth. If you have the earth beat you, you can't fight other human enemies, which is called the battle against man. So you got the battle against the earth, you got to win, and then you got to win the battle against men. We ignore that in the U.S. military. That's why we're messed up in a lot of ways. So that was my early part of my career, was to focus on the soldier's load. But there's a limit to what you can do with the human body. I mean, human body up against bullets and explosions is not going to overcome that. You need tracked armored vehicles. And so my second part of my career, I started advocating intelligent mechanization. That's using armored vehicles on tracks to move cross country, be able to go against enemy fire. At that point, I was an officer in the Marine Corps. And you look at the Marine force structure, and they're wondering why I spoke out against that in Marine Corps Gazette articles, not only just for the soldier's load, but also to get the Marine Corps to out of its World War I foot slogging. That was a frustrating experience. I switched over to the Army, which is more open-minded, and I was in the Army temporarily enlisted so I can get my airborne school. During the 90s, the money was so tight. That's the only way I could get airborne school. It was to be enlisted for a while, and then I became reappointed as an officer in the Army Reserve and the National Guard. There I went again to, overseas one time, and another time went to National Training Center in the desert, and to Joint Readiness Training Center at Fort Polk, which is closed terrain. And during these events, I'm comparing what we're doing to how it works against the earth, how it works against human enemies, and it just doesn't add up. So I spoke out against the Humvee, which is a wheeled vehicle but has not armored, and no one listened. And now we have 6,000, people dead in Iraq, Afghanistan, 60,000 wounded, and it was all foreseeable. If you just add 2 and 2 together, look at your military history, look at your experience. So it's a very frustrating experience that you're not getting military reform based on common cause and effect, objective reality relationships. Military is completely subjective about who you are in the military, your social standing, the hell with facts. Just, what's your rank? And the only rank that seems to have any clout is 3-star general and above. So you could be like a Medal of Honor winner, all your arms shot off and your legs, and you got the Medal of Honor, but if you're not a 3-star general, you're not going to change the bureaucracy. So I came to the realization the U.S. military is a bureaucracy and not a profession. Now that's handling, at the lower level, but it doesn't explain why at the higher level they don't, have a wider view of things and want to do what's best for everybody. And I found, to my horror, after briefing a 4-star general, Vice Chief of Staff of the Army, General John Keane, on an Air Max strike, proposal, this is our Air Max strike book. I briefed him, and I said, we have this vehicle we could buy off the shelf. Let's buy 50 of them. We're not saying buy a whole bunch. Let's get the 101st, which is his old unit, which uses helicopters. So, they would fit inside, the helicopter and roll on and roll off. And he said, yes. And at the end of the day, after this great, presentation I gave to him, he did nothing. And then I find out later he's a member of the Bilderberg Group, which is a secret society, which is making illegal plans. You know, you're not supposed to go overseas and talk to private groups about the American government, what we're going to do or not do. So I think it's the Lodge Act or something. He's breaking a law as a secret society member. What's he doing? But anyway, I came to realize that the people in charge are not going to do what's best for the soldier to win the war, smother the conflict, that there's secret society groups that are really running the show. And so one day I was trying to handle the UFO problem. Because when you talk about UFOs, immediately you're discredited, you're a fool, you know, ridicule and everything like that. Well, there's a problem. At the end of World War II, there was a rash of UFO sightings. And they demand an explanation. So I started reading Nick Cook's book, The Hunt for Zero Point. And while I'm reading the book, he says one group of people who would possibly know what UFOs are really about would be Ian Fleming's 30 Assault Unit. And I go, 30 Assault Unit? Since when did Ian Fleming command in an intelligence gathering commando unit? And then I go, whoa, he really did command this group. Maybe I need to go back and research everything he said. It may not be fantasy. He may be trying to tell us something. And then what I did is I went back and actually read all the James Bond novels with my knowledge of military history, current events, technology, and then realized, wait a minute, he's warning us, and this is a warning here, this is a warning there. He's speaking in symbolism, and then it all started making sense. So I connected the world of spy, intelligence world, and conspiracies to military history, military reform. They all came together. They demanded it. I did not want to go there, but when you keep bashing your head against the wall, you know, trying to get positive military reform, and they keep saying no for no good reason, you got to cry foul. And Ian Fleming said, once is happenstance, twice is coincidence, third time is enemy action. Okay. So that's the conclusion you had to draw. You're dealing with people who are enemies.
Wow. Okay. Well, very well said. And that's a great sort of entree onto what we're going to be talking about now. So from here on, you must have researched this for a number of years before you wrote James Bond is Real. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Right. It started in 2006 when I saw the reboot of Casino Royale. I said, wow, this is pretty good. You know, I started reading the James Bond novels. So from 2006 to 2009, before, you know, I finished the book, I took 3 years writing the book here. What I was doing is collecting information and creating a framework, you know, of how the pieces, you know, interlock together. So the conclusion I came to was that World War II did not end as we thought it did, because there's some events that demand explanation that doesn't make sense. For instance, you know, all these things that Hitler could have done to win the war. So I went to Greg Hallett's book, Hitler Was a British Agent. So you connect that with Nick Cook's book of the high technology German defeat, which I call high technology German defeat theory. Connect it with World War II is an Illuminati event. That means the original plan was, you know, Germany and Russia were going to meet, and they were going to kill each other and make a lot of war profits for the war racketeers. And what happened is, for some strange reason, the Prime Minister of England, Neville Chamberlain, made the decision to defend Poland, which was getting in the way of Germany meeting Russia, and Hitler went west when he should have went east. And I don't have a good answer on that one, but I'm just trying to say is that if you're working for the forces of evil, they will throw you under the bus. You maybe think you're working for the evil one, and he's going to let you get money and power and depopulation goals, but who's to say he isn't going to throw you under the bus? And that's what it seems like happened. For some reason, some MI5 agents accused Neville Chamberlain of being a wimp, and that's what got him to say, doggone it, we're going to defend Poland. No tangible way they're going to do that, but all it did was just stop Hitler and made him go in the other direction. So things like that caused me to re-look at World War II, and particularly the ending. And then what you do is you look for symbology in the James Bond novels that would match up and explain what's going on. So in tonight's talk, I'd like to talk about three things. one, what are the realities we're looking for in 007 symbology? Two, what exactly happened, Operation High Jump and the early 1940s, 50s UFO sighting spree? And three, presume Fleming knew everything. So you're taking what we know and re-looking at everything that happened. And the first topic would be, what realities are we looking for in 007 symbology? Most people know revelation of the method. That was Michael Hoffman coming up with that, which is somehow God has mandated the evil. You guys have a head start to kind of make it more even. You must say what you're going to do before you do it. So that's the concept of revelation of the method. But I also think there's another form of this symbology that the bad guys use, which is revelation of the event. That means something already happened, and you knuckleheads didn't see it, and then you got to go back and interpret. You got to find out what actually happened. Now, there's some people who do good work for what I call high technology German defeat theory. Those are people like William Lynn, Joseph Farrell, Henry Stevens. But they all tend to kind of beat around the bush. I don't do that. What I will do is I'll say, look, if you're saying this, I'm going to follow this thought all the way to this conclusion. So if you say the Germans escaped with high technology and they went to Argentina, South America, other places in South America, Antarctica, Norway, Greenland, then daggone it, let's take that and run with it. Let's go find these bases. Let's go find evidence that they were flying saucers from those bases. Do your Google map, Google Earth search. Now, in James Bond is Real, our book here, at the last chapter, you will see there are openings in South America, Antarctica, the South Pole, that are unexplored. And so all you have to do is Google search, if you don't have our book here, and put down, Bunker Hills area, and then zoom, and you can see these holes. I've got it here in the book. It's maybe hard to see, but I could read off the longitude and latitude for you, so you could go there.
Yeah, Mike, maybe you could hold that book up just right in front of your face, if you don't mind, and then we're going to see it a little better. Maybe open the book to the page you wanted to show people, and just so we can capture a quick shot of just what that was.
It's the Bunker Hills area in the Antarctic.
Okay.
And there's a hole, there's very large openings that you can Google on Google Maps, Google Earth, and see these. And you can go on my YouTube channel, which is Dynamic Para 2. I have an operation called Windjammer. And I actually proposed how we could go down there and see the openings.
All right, now I have your
YouTube. An expedition.
I have your YouTube here on hand so that we can quickly bring it up on the screen. Is there something or anything that you want me to show people on that channel?
No, just you could do that, but you could also have them when they get there, put down this term. I call it Operation Windjammer. If you put Operation Windjammer when you're on, my YouTube channel, which is Dynamic Para 2, you should bring it to the video, and the video will explain everything much better than, trying to get a screen capture from the book. It'll show you visually zooming into the two openings in the Bunker Hills area, which is where the Nazis claimed territory before the war. And there's apparently some kind of warm water or warm air or something underneath the ground there. So, which is inexplicable why it's warm. So that would explain also why they'd want to, be there underground, in the frigid South Pole area. But, the video explains everything. Like if you had, a National Geographic expedition, what would you do? How could we get down there? So what I'm trying to do is get closure, resolution to this, and not just endlessly, speculating. Let's get to the bottom of this. So that leads me to my next point. And that next point is, what exactly happened, in the 1940s and 1950s? What we have at the end of 1945 is that Franklin Roosevelt died. I don't believe he died despite his bad health. I think he was murdered. There was evidence that he was poisoned while he was at Warm Springs, Georgia. Usually when you murder a head of state, you have waiting in the wings your guy. And that guy was Harry S. Truman, who was a controllable person. But at times he didn't follow his control. But I think he was definitely under control. And so what you see is Truman at the end of World War II, 1946, we've got to set the stage now. You've got people wanting to go home. Or we've mobilized a million men under arms, okay, World War II. These people want to go home. It's 1946. The war is over, okay? Everyone's clamoring to go home. The Japanese are defeated too. Forget about the point system. Let's go home.
Mike? Okay, Mike, are you there? Mike. Okay, here we go. We're going to try to connect again with him. Hold on 1 minute here. Mike?
Mary, are we back yet?
We are. Just hold on. I got to make sure we go live with this. We did get canceled out, so we have to give it a minute for the Skype, the actual live stream to catch up with you. Okay. Now let me make sure we're back. Asking the chat to verify that you are back online. Mike is back, they're saying. Okay. All right. The reading I'm getting here looks good. So let's continue. You were actually broken off right there. So you're going to go back a couple sentences. All right. You're talking about Truman being controllable, and I'm not sure after that what you said. Hello? Wow.
Definitely.
Okay, hello? Hello? Okay. Hello?
Okay. Can you hear me, Carrie?
Okay, yeah. I think I said the magic word, Truman. I'm not sure that's seems to be an issue.
Truman is
not sure why.
A puppet of the Rockefeller Illuminati. The public is going to flip-flop after so many years.
Wow. Okay. Let me see what we've got going on here. Are you there? Oh God. Okay.
Okay. Are we back yet?
Hold on. Hold on here. Let's just pause for a minute, and I'm gonna. My video is off, so that should be saving us a little bit of energy at this end. Okay. All right. Looks like we're back on, and I'm gonna hope that we can keep your picture. If we have to go to straight audio, we will, but it shouldn't be such a big problem. I'm getting some weird message here. Hold on 1 second, okay, Mike? Okay. We're going to start again here, and we were able to save that last bit, so I'm very happy about that because you did a great job, and so I'm going to just try to bring you up on the screen here. So just hold 1 second, and try to get this going. All right. Okay. Okay, one more time. Let's go with this, Mike, and start with where you were at. I believe we're live now.
Okay, no problem. I know where to start off. Like I said, Truman had flashes of decency and brilliance, even though he was under control of the Rockefeller Illuminati by being switched out just before the election. He switched out with Henry Wallace, who was the vice president, a very moral man. Wallace would have spread democracy around the world if he had become president. When you do a coup d'etat, you usually have a guy waiting in the wings to take over. So assassination. The guy that would have been most threatened by FDR continuing as president was Allen Dulles. Allen Dulles was under surveillance for FDR, and FDR would have tried Dulles for treason because he was working for the Nazis, the Germans. He's an awful scumbag, traitor, Illuminati lawyer, Rockefeller man. This guy, Allen, and his brother John Foster Dulles, evil people. Anyway, later on, Dulles would be somewhat fired by John F. Kennedy, and I say somewhat, he was kept on the job for all of 1961, even though he screwed up at the Bay of Pigs. JFK mistakenly left him in power for all of 1961. So I don't know if you want me to continue talking if there's an internet problem, but anyway, I can always summarize.
Okay. No, you're
Dulles
doing great here.
Murdered Kennedy too. I think Allen Dulles murdered John F. Kennedy and Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So what that means to me is his name should be taken off of every monument, any history book as a person of honor. Both Dulles brothers are scum. They're terrible, traitors, treason. Now the Russians can do this. How can the Russians take somebody like Stalin and erase him from the history books when they find out that they murdered 35 million people plus? We should be able to do the same with Lyndon Johnson, Allen Dulles, the guys that murdered Kennedy, since this month is the 50th anniversary. The things that we should be focusing in on is that Allen Dulles was in charge. And of course, the limousine stopped. Anytime we start fixating on Oswald discussions, the enemy wins, because that's a rabbit trail, or the Warren Commission, because the Warren Commission was overruled by the U.S. government. The official U.S. government position is that Kennedy was killed by a conspiracy, more than one gunman. That's from the 1977 House Select Committee on Assassinations. Now, this all ties into Ian Fleming, because the legendary researcher Jim Marrs told me, when he looked at my research, his conclusion was he thinks that Ian Fleming was murdered himself because he was, felled by a heart attack just before the Warren Commission report came out in 1964. If Ian Fleming, who was a friend of John F. Kennedy, had read that piece of crap, he would have said something, and he has billions of James Bond fans who would have listened to Ian Fleming. So I'm inclined to believe Jim Marrs that Ian Fleming was assassinated by making him have a heart attack. The moral of the story is don't live your life in excess by drinking, smoking, and all that, because it's too easy to kill you with a heart attack. If they're going to try to kill you by accident, make them work for it.
Okay, fair enough, and very good points. I have to say that makes perfect sense. Okay, so from here, where do you want to go with this?
I know exactly where to go. Is that why are we sending a fleet to Antarctica in 1946-47 when everyone a military fleet, aircraft carrier, submarine tenders, seaplane tenders, submarines, warships, destroyers to the South Pole? If they're going to just do National Geographic, here's the white cockaded woodpecker in his environment walking across snowdrifts. I mean, if they're going to do that, they could just send one ship and a little seaplane and, Marlin Perkins. a young Marlon Perkins at that time. They could have done that, right? Or Jim. Jim could have run out there and put a tag, electronic beeping device on a penguin, and they could have tracked him for the next 20 years or something. You don't send a Navy fleet to Antarctica right after the end of World War II unless there's a military threat. And that demands an answer. And the only answer, logically, is that the Nazis escaped to Antarctica and they're going down there to kill them.
Yeah, yeah.
He was capable of flashes of decency and morality. And, he escaped his handler's control. Now, the thing that's interesting is that the guy he sent to lead the expedition, Admiral Byrd, is a relative of D.L. Byrd, who's the owner of the Texas School Book Depository. That's right, right-wing guy, where the patsy during the JFK thing was positioned. And the whole Rockefeller infatuation with the Arctic comes from their fascist views. Fascism is really an American Rockefeller invention. It's the idea that these guys, these German guys, fair-skinned, came from the north or the south, the Arctic regions, and they used technology. There was a great flood. They dug themselves underground, and they saved themselves. So they didn't build an ark. They dug deep with technology. Or a hollow earth connection. It's all this Hyperborea stuff that Hitler and those guys believed in, and they sent people to Tibet to find the entrances to hollow earth. I mean, you don't like this stuff, but you have no choice. That's what the enemy is thinking and doing and believing. So they send the military force down there, and it gets its butt kicked because it's sent back with its tail between its legs. And so what I want to do here is focus in on what's really happening, is that an anti-gravity craft is flying by some kind of electromagnetic propulsion, as William Lind would say, derived from Tesla, who's another suspicious death. Terrible way we treated this guy. He apparently in 1919 offered to the world anti-gravity technology, flying saucers, for the League of Nations to keep the world at peace. Kind of a naive idea, but he said, hey, you can go around stomping people with this anti-gravity and, we can make everyone live at peace. Of course, the Illuminati don't want to live at peace. They want people killing each other, making maximum profits, and of course they want about 6 billion of us to go away. But the point is that this technology is hard to weaponize. If you look at the end of World War II, they're flying these Foo Fighters, here's your airplanes, right? And they're flying these orbs, and they don't have weapons to shoot the bombers down. They're trying to get close to make the engines malfunction. It didn't really work. But what is happening here is they can fly, but they can't easily shoot down other airplanes. For some reason, they were able, by 1947, Operation High Jump, they were able to shoot some planes down to cause the Byrd mission to go back to the United States. Now, the thing that I just realized myself, when you rethink these things, there's another reason why these hyper intense electromagnetic fields are hard to weaponize, is if you poked an automatic cannon through the magnetic field and you shot bullets and cannon shells at somebody, that wouldn't look very space age, would it? That would just say, wait a minute. And if you are going to use these flying saucers in a military way, not a military fighting way, not a reconnaissance or insert and extract special operations way, it's hard to shoot things down. But by 1947, we had the Kenneth Arnold incident. And Kenneth Arnold, if you remember, was flying his airplane looking for a U.S. Marine Corps C-46 that was lost over Mount Rainier. There's evidence that that C-46 was shot down by 20-millimeter gunfire. Well, most of our planes, except for the P-38 nose cannon, had 50 caliber machine gun bullets. So what it looks like is that the C-46 was shot down by a Nazi flying saucer. And what's happening is Kenneth Arnold and some of these other people, the Maury Island incident, are covering it up and creating this lie that they're What the heck did Kenneth Arnold do during World War II? Kenneth Arnold was a physically fit college football player and he was a businessman. All right, that's all that's said of him at this point. But in 1941, he would have been 27 years old. So if he's physically fit, flies airplanes, 27 years old, America begins World War II, what did he do for the whole war? You know, it just doesn't wash. Somebody needs to find out what the heck did Kenneth Arnold do. Now, something about myself, I have a strange ability to tell people what their rank is. Now, being in the military since I've been in since 1981, I can tell people by their mannerism, how they talk, how they look, you know, the way they hold themselves, their eye expressions, facial expressions. I can tell their rank. It's bizarre. I can say, that's a general, that's a first sergeant, that's a private. I can't explain it. I just have an intuition about it. So when I listened to Kenneth Arnold recently do an interview, radio interview, my intuition is a lieutenant colonel. He comes off to me like a lieutenant colonel, possibly at the OSS, Office of Strategic Services.
Oh, very interesting.
Speculation, suspicion that, you know, you have to go after it and find out. Well, tell me, what did he do? But if that was the case, then that'd make him a disinformation agent. In other words, at the end of World War II, we tried to stomp out the Nazis. Couldn't do it. They had superior technology. Now, in retaliation, the Nazis are flying their anti-gravity craft to the United States to harass us. They'll fly over the, Boeing plant, which is what the Kenneth Arnold incident recognizes. You know, they're up there building new bombers. Now, the new bombers would be jets, like the B-47 from 1947. If that bomber was at altitude, the UFOs may not detect it in time, and then that bomber could drop a nuclear bomb and take out the underground Nazi colony, you know, what some people call Base 211, whatever, in the Antarctic. In other words, it poses a threat to them. So you have flying saucers sneaking around the Boeing plant.
Mike, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, this is excellent information. I just want to give you a footnote here because I did an interview in Washington, D.C. with a man named Lieutenant Colonel French. Mm-hmm. Did you happen to see it?
No, but I could reference it.
I just want to tell you that you should watch that interview because this man was part of OSI. He was a disinformation specialist back in those days, and very likely he's a very old man right now. It's on the front page of Camelot under latest releases. If you just use the arrow, there's 3 things there. One is your original James Bond. We did a Camelot roundtable, if you recall. The second thing there is Pere Villa, and the third thing is my interview with Lieutenant Colonel French. I just want to say that it's very likely he's a man that you could contact and ask him about Kenneth Arnold.
Yeah, I should try to talk to him directly.
Yeah. And he's still alive, and he's a very feisty guy, very, very charming, very interesting man, still has his full intellectual capacity, and maybe he could help you out there to connect some dots. So this is a fascinating theory that you've got going on in terms of following the dots from Kenneth Arnold all the way through to the idea that the Nazis were still harassing America. But they did more than harass. They actually infiltrated us. I assume you're going in that direction, but go right ahead.
Right. Well, I wanted to get the UFO sightings out first to show visibly, without any shadow of a doubt, it's not a perceptual thing, you know, before we go into the paperclip thing, because that's covered very well. But Lavenda does a really good job of connecting the dots with the paperclip Nazis to this weird Catholic Church ministry that was really a front. And you've got Ferry and Jack Martin and those guys. You can see those videos on the Dynamic Para, our YouTube channel, where I look into that Operation Paperclip, Maury Island disinformation, Guy Bannister. In other words, what I see happening, pattern analysis, you go back, look, okay, I see a pattern developing, is that it's embarrassing at the best. They don't want the people to know that we didn't end World War II like we should have. Or worse, they're in cahoots. The country's turned over to the right-wing Republican Rockefeller Illuminati, and they like the Nazis, and they're in cahoots with them to some varying degree. But you have a flash of decency and brilliance from Truman. He sends Admiral Byrd to try to stomp them out in Antarctica. Now you see retaliation. You see them flying over a Boeing plant. You see the Maury Island incident, Kenneth Arnold incident, which looks like the UFO encountered the Marine C-46 and shot it down. And they had to cover that up because if they saw 20-millimeter cannon shells, game over. That's not E.T., from another planet. And you have the Roswell incident, which is, again, nuclear bomb group that's capable of dropping a nuclear bomb. Now, what we have to do is make a very severe turn. After you loft the bomb, you've got to make a severe turn to get the hell out of there, or you're going to get blown up in the nuclear blast. That group, the 509th, they're able to do that kind of thing. They pose a threat. If you take things logically, like I said, let's run this thing all the way to the end. Joseph Farrell, Henry Stevens, and company. Let's run with this. And in that case, you run with it, and it makes sense. It fits. These guys pose a threat. Now, another thing that makes another sense is if you can't easily weaponize your flying saucers with guns and you don't want to shoot a missile because it's too obvious, you can definitely use them to observe, and you can use them to insert and extract, commandos. That's the Mantell incident. Hovering, and it looks like they're doing reconnaissance. Now, why would they do that? Well, the Germans love gold. I don't know why. You can't eat the stuff, but Ian Fleming writes Goldfinger. You have this.
Well, actually,
incident.
monatomic gold, as it turns out, you can eat it, but go right ahead.
Well, I think the idea of the gold was the what do you call it? The eternal life. It's the secret of eternal life. Maybe some kind of gold elixir. I was being sarcastic on that one. I shouldn't have been.
No problem.
But, yeah, there is probably some real validity to that gold and extending your life. But it's hinted at in Cowboys and Aliens, which is a bad Daniel Craig movie. I like Daniel Craig, but not that one. But, just there's things about it I didn't like it, especially the girl dying. When the girl dies, I don't like the movie.
Okay.
Okay, so you have them looking at Fort Knox, and they could be saying, to the public, one thing, and at the other time sending a message to the American government, we could land, have commandos come out of the flying saucers, take the gold from Fort Knox, put it back in the flying saucer, take America's gold supply. I believe, well, this is my third point, I'm getting ahead of myself, while all of these incidents are happening, Ian Fleming is in the know. Because if you know what you know, which is that, as Nick Cook said, 30 Assault Unit captured the German Kriegsmarine Navy records. And if Ian Fleming knows about flying saucers, then you got to go back and say, what was Ian Fleming thinking when you have the Mantell incident, Arnold incident, the Maury Island incident? He's in the know. So he's unable to talk about it because he's under the Official Secrets Act. He's not in naval intelligence after 1951. He's working for MI6. When he was working as the foreign manager of Kemsley newspapers, he's running agents all over the world. He's working for MI6. That's proven by Nigel West in his book, The Historical Dictionary of Ian Fleming's World of Intelligence. And you can see a video I made of that showing that Ian Fleming was James Bond. He worked for MI6 after the war and actually before the war. So anyway, Ian Fleming is trying to tell you this. He's a humble guy. But the point is, the last incident is that we had UFOs flying over Washington, D.C. in a show of force in 1952, telling Truman, back off, dude. And that's where it ends.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. Let me just throw out a couple things. Ian Fleming, first of all, you're saying he's a humble guy, but I would say he's also somebody who's signed a secrecy oath, and he has no other choice but to be humble and not to reveal too much. But he is allowed to write the James Bond's, novels, obviously. So it's fiction. Fact parading is fiction, which is how they like to do it anyway.
Yeah, that's right. But I think he's warning us. I don't think he's just doing it as revelation of the method, which is, we've got to do this.
Well, well, you're talking about a person who appears to have had a conscience, unlike many of these other players. So obviously he was trying to clear his conscience by telling the truth as best he
he's
could.
trying to clear his conscience and do a good deed. I think he paid for it with his life. So that's the underground military bases, and he's warning us of flying saucers. Flying saucers. We haven't seen that in a James Bond movie yet. Well, yes, you have. The movie Thunderball has the villain's yacht called the Disco Volante. Disco Volante is a Spanish phrase for flying saucer. And you say, okay, well, that's a coincidence. Well, remember you said about coincidence, happenstance, enemy hacks. Well, anyway, the point is I found a newspaper article from 1947 Chile, which you can see a YouTube video I made of it, where it says Disco Volante, something, something, Santiago, Chile, meaning that Ian Fleming probably saw the newspaper headline, because he's a head guy for the Kemsley newspaper, right, foreign manager, and later on he integrated the name into the yacht of the villain in Thunderball, because that is a legitimate threat. The threat in Thunderball is that the yacht appears to be a civilian vessel and it's actually moving nuclear weapons. What Ian Fleming is trying to warn us is that the threat of anti-gravity craft, flying saucers, is that they could place a nuclear weapon anywhere they want, and we couldn't stop them because they fly so fast, or it'd be under the radar screen, we couldn't spot them. You understand what I'm saying? That the threat, he's trying to warn us of the UFO threat without using the actual UFO in the story, which people, when they see and hear about UFOs, they automatically dismiss it. I say let's meet this problem head on. We have a bunch of UFO sightings starting at the end of World War II. You do pattern analysis. Before World War II, we don't have very many UFO sightings. Why? So something happened between World War II, 1939 to 45, that caused all these UFOs to appear afterwards. And the simplest Occam's razor is that human beings, the Nazis in this case, discovered how to fly with anti-gravity. And that's what we're seeing at the end of World War II.
Okay, but do you acknowledge that they got it from off-planet races?
Right. I'm not saying all UFOs that you see are human anti-gravity. I say 75%. Again, I don't beat around the bush. 75%. The other 25% are, I think, demonic. They're intraterrestrials, but you could call them ETs or whatever because they're not humans. They're evil beings. In other words, my response to seeing UFOs, you first try to shoot it. If that doesn't work, then you break out your King James Bible and see how they respond to every knee shall bow and tongue shall confess Jesus Christ the Lord. They ain't gonna like it, if they're demons, right?
If
they're teeth, they might just go.
And if they don't give a shit for that, then what do you do with yourself? No, because
that's what you need to find out. See, that's what James Bond is all about. James Bond, Ian Fleming is telling you, get off your butt, be James Bond, find these underground bases, confront these UFOs, find the Nazis, go out there and do something, because you can make a difference. You don't have to have a huge force doing something. The whole point of James Bond is he's one man. Look what he can do, because he knows what he's doing. He's competent. He's courageous. He's unselfish. Ian Fleming wants us to be James Bond citizens.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I mean, there is a deeper.
And get the girl too.
There's a deeper story
Have
here
some fun while you're doing it.
That also has to do with the Nazis and which races of off-planet beings they're working with. And you know of the references, do you not, to Aldebaran within the Nazi literature?
Well, within the Nazi literature, they're getting inspiration from the supernatural. You've got the 1919 having a seance, the Vril Society girls,
right.
I'd want to date them. They look pretty hot. But anyway, the Vril Society girls are having seances and they're having flying saucers appear. The whole flying saucer thing has a supernatural origin. And Ian Fleming comes from a banking family. His father was a banker, unfortunately died in World War I as a leader in the infantry, I believe. But anyway, ground combat leader. But the point is, he's a family is connected to the Rothschild Illuminati, which is in rivalry with the Rockefellers. The Rockefellers love violence. The Rothschilds kind of like sex. So there's a rivalry. So the Rothschilds tend to control the liberal Democrats in the United States. That's their baby. It's their guy. Versus the Rockefellers, they love killing people. And
right. Well, I mean, actually, probably two sides of a reptilian races, actually, in their DNA. But that gets into a whole different area. So, in terms of, because this is about the symbolism, let's back up a little bit, because I wanted to get into, I mean, among other things in terms of the symbolism, there's certainly...
Question. I didn't hear it.
Oh, sorry.
Question?
Because this is about the symbolism, right? I wanted to go back to some of the symbolism in the James Bond books that we should be touching on here in this discussion as well. One, for example, being that I was tantalized by that idea of the throwing of the hat that you referred to, and I thought that was quite good. Do you want to talk about that?
Right. In Goldfinger, I think this is Ian Fleming's best book. He's happy. He's really hot riding high. In Goldfinger, he's got a thug, odd job, who's got a hat that he can throw and use as a weapon. Again, how do you weaponize a hat? I think what Ian Fleming is doing in his mind's eye, saying, okay, I can't talk about UFOs. What looks like a UFO? Well, they didn't have Frisbees back then, but you got bowler hats, right? So, English gentleman hats. So he said, well, how can I make that a weapon? Okay, we spin the thing. It's got a sharp razor, hits the girl in the neck. Imagine you want to kill Goldfinger. So the point is that he's having a hard time weaponizing, his hats. That's the problem that they're having. I think Ian Fleming read the German naval documents, and they said, we can fly, but we're having a hard time weaponizing these things, because if we violate that they're flying by, the thing's going to fly crazy. You know what I mean? So maybe we poke a cannon through it. Maybe. We can't just open up the anti-gravity field and drop a missile or a bomb, because then now cause an imbalance, you see. So they're having trouble weaponizing. But the movie is where they take it and really run with it. And in my video, when you go to Dynamic Para 2 YouTube channel, I will show you that the producer of the Ian Fleming films, Albert Broccoli and Harry Saltzman was in naval intelligence in the British side, and Albert Broccoli was a Navy guy in the U.S. Navy. I think they're Illuminati connected. They started making movies in Warwick Films in England in the 1950s. Their first film was called The Red Beret. And in The Red Beret, it's about British airborne, like those guys, Maroon Beret. They have the lead commander, the captain, walk into the office, and he flings, this isn't a Maroon Beret, I got one of my Army black berets there. Anyway, he flings his beret onto the hat rack. Now, why would you do something like that? It's bizarre. I mean, how many takes did that take? Take 25. Now, make sure you hit the hat rack this time, sir. Take 39. They're throwing this flying saucer. And I think that the producers, Broccoli and Saltzman, knew all along about flying saucers, and they couldn't say anything about it. And they started as far back as The Red Beret, which is really like a James Bond movie. It's got the action, the commandos, at the end of the movie, coming to a climax. It's awesome. So they got their James Bond style started with the movie The Red Beret. Then in 1962, onward, every time Ian Fleming enters the office of M, where, adjoining office is Moneypenny's office, you see James Bond flinging his hat onto the hat rack.
Right.
Why?
Okay.
And that's happened several times during the series. And then you've got the Disco Volante, like I told you about before, in the Thunderball. The movie Moonraker has some visuals, but the book is better. The book is pure Operation Paperclip. If you read the book, which has not yet been made into a movie, the SS Commando / Werner von Braun. Basically, Fleming is saying they're not working for us. They're working for the sour grape Nazis, because they're sour that they lost World War II. So at the end of Moonraker, they are going to shoot a test missile with an actual nuclear warhead into London to do a killing on the stock market. Now, doesn't that sound interesting? That's Ian Fleming's Illuminati connections speaking there, because the Rothschilds got rich in the first place by making a killing on the stock market from the war versus Napoleon. When Wellington and Napoleon were at Waterloo in a deadlock, the Rothschilds found out who was going to win, which was Wellington, and they were able to make a killing on the stock market and take over the British banks. So this whole stock market killing thing manifests itself later in 9/11, as you know, with the Deutsche Bank making a killing off short-selling stocks in anticipation of the 9/11 attacks, and the CIA is directly connected to the Deutsche Bank because Truman, at the end of World War II, disbanded the OSS, which was a great organization. It was very anti-fascist, and he said, "I don't want a Gestapo on American shores." 2 years later, that's exactly what he did. He signed into existence the Central Intelligence Agency in 1947, which is permeated by Nazi war criminals from, not just Operation Paperclip, but also Operation Sunrise, other deals that Dulles cut.
Well,
They bring these guys over. The whole Jelen organization, Eastern Europe intelligence organization was brought in its entirety to the CIA to jumpstart it. This evil organization. I don't like the CIA, as you can tell.
right. And then James Jesus Angleton. You familiar with him as well?
Oh, yeah. He's an evil son of a you-know-what.
Well, okay, but had a lot to do with the Nazi side and getting Italy, the fascists involved there, but also Truman also signed into effect MJ-12 around the same time. Are you able to hear me? Hello?
Kill the country. I mean, I always try to think of the worst president of the United States, and Truman comes to mind, despite the few things that he tried to do good. Because some of the things that he did, like creating the CIA, the separate Marine Corps, and the military now that can't fight with teamwork, because you got two egomaniac bureaucracies in the Marine Corps and the Air Force going off doing their own thing. And you've got the CIA, which is destroying public objectivity. They're operating here in the United States to undermine the basic mentality of the American people, turning them into mindless consumers, exporting, Wall Street, basically neo-colonialism all over the world,
Okay, Mike, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, did you hear me say that Truman signed into effect MJ-12?
Right, he's pegged for that. I mean, I wouldn't put anything past him.
Okay. What I wanted to go back to was Werner von Braun, because I'm wondering how much you know about him.
A lot. I've looked into it. The problem is I call Werner von Braun low-technology German defeat theory. What that means is I don't think rockets and cruise missiles are high technology. Now, you need to do that, because if you don't, you're not going to understand the low-technology German defeat theorists like Ladislas Farrago, Manning, Brian Infield, Glenn Infield. You've got to differentiate the people who just say the Nazis escaped, they're not much of a threat, they got some missiles and maybe some jets, we've got them, and don't worry about it. Now, I call it low-technology German defeat theory. Now, within low-technology German defeat theory, von Braun is Mr. Rocketeer. Action-reaction rockets are a very inefficient way to get into space. So it's hard to make a case that with action-reaction rockets that we have a moon base or a Mars base, just because you're fighting so much gravity to get there. But within that theory, I went and looked at the FBI records on Werner von Braun. They don't like him.
Yeah, well, what about a lot of his background has been whitewashed big time. You do know that.
Right. I first want to lay the groundwork. From what we know is that Werner von Braun murdered rivals. And it looks to me like he had a rival in Nazi Germany who was an equally good scientist for low technology rocket science. He smeared that guy's name and got his wife put in trace account. So if Werner von Braun will do something like that, I have a suspicion that Werner von Braun did in our guy, Jack Parsons of Jet Propulsion Laboratory, because theoretically, why are you starting over again with Von Braun? You got Jack Parsons, a little crazy. He loves women too much. But anyway, you could have used that guy and built your action-reaction rocket space program.
They did do it. JPL is all about that.
No, but they blew up Jack Parsons. JPL is
but that was, someone murdered him, though. He didn't blow himself.
Right. I think Werner von Braun did it. I think Werner von Braun and his team came in. We are the top dogs. We'll work for you.
Quite a claim.
But we want this guy out of the way. So they blew up Jack Parsons.
Okay, but what do you say to the idea
I'm reaching into what you're saying.
Yeah,
there is evidence.
Wait one second. What if he was? Just wait 1 second. What if Werner von Braun? Because I have some back channel information here. Okay. What if Werner von Braun was? What if that was a cover? What if rocketry?
Darling, I am. I'm running with that. That's just the low-hanging fruit. Werner von Braun was Mr. Rocketeer. Okay. I'm saying that Werner von Braun hobnobbed with Ian Fleming and Arthur C. Clarke in London, and even H.G. Wells. There's a great little miniseries, The Amazing Worlds of H.G. Wells. Really good miniseries. I mean, the guy's evil as all get out, but he had a nice little romance going on. And I really watched that miniseries, The Amazing Worlds of H.G. Wells. It's good stuff. But anyway, he's working for the wrong side. But anyway, the point is, these guys are very open-minded. They're thinking, like you're saying, not limited to action. If you're having a hard time getting off the Earth with action-reaction, negate gravity. So Fleming and the British Planetary Society, there's a connection there. I haven't tracked down fully, but, von Braun's right in the middle of it. Yeah. All right? So William Lynn is my source on this, and he says, no, von Braun was not wed to rockets. He says that von Braun was here in the United States in 1936 to 37 in the southwest United States at the laboratories there, White Sands, and he was working on anti-gravity stolen from Tesla.
Yes.
Then after World War II was over, Lynn says von Braun worked on anti-gravity for us. And so if you watch the movie Last Picture Show, you ever see that?
Yes.
A very dreary black and white movie. Imagine the Last Picture Show, but without Sybil Shepherd, okay? Without her, imagine a flying saucer appearing in the middle of that movie. That's William Lynn in a nutshell. In the 1950s, he's in some dreary Texas town, and all of a sudden these flying saucers appear, and he says, makes no bones about it, these are American reverse-engineered, copied flying saucers from the Nazis. So how do you reconcile that? It could be that we had a group of angry Fourth Reich Nazis escaping to Antarctica saying, leave us alone, we'll leave you alone. And there were some other Nazis that came by paperclip and were saying, give us what you got. You understand? We don't really fully know everything here, but doggone it, we're going to put the facts out there and see what connects and what sticks. So I think Lynn's telling the truth. I think he did see American flying saucers in the early 50s. Now, the guy that's really an ET cheerleader, Timothy Good, probably one of your guests on your show, he says, and he's Mr. ET cheerleader now, America perfected anti-gravity craft by 1962. So what you got is a flying saucer gap. From 1945 to 62, we're getting our butts kicked by the Nazis who have flying saucers and have figured out some way to weaponize them, okay? But by 1962, we've got them, and there you go.
Okay, fair enough. Let me say, though, that I'm not sure where you're going with all of this, because you do understand that the Bushes, that entire family...
Well, I definitely know where I'm going with it, because I got it all in notes here.
Okay, well, fair enough. But are you going to go in the direction of talking about the Bush cabal, because you do know they're Nazis and they are running the country?
Right. Well, the Bush cabal is just the Rockefeller Illuminati. That's the way I phrase it. Look at it. They're all a part of a right-wing mentality that loves violence.
Okay, but you're also saying though that, in other words, I don't quite get where there's a merging happening. At some point, the Nazis are no longer the enemy.
Well, that's the question. When Henry Stevens says they conked out in 1989. Henry Stevens says in 1989, the flying saucers of the Fourth Reich in South America, the guys got old, they got tired of flying them, and they stopped. They started rusting. When I say, okay, fine, then we need to go down there, find the underground bases, see the rusting flying saucers. I mean, let's get to the bottom of this, okay? That's what you say, Henry Stevens, right? But what you're saying, I do have an answer for it, and that's, I think, the truth. The truth is the Rockefeller Illuminati created German fascism in the first place. Fascism is a Rockefeller invention. All fascism is economic feudalism. It's saying you, the individual, don't count for squat. You need to live your life for the glory of the nation state and corporations, and you will have glory from that. And everything should sublimate itself to the nation state.
Have you studied Jordan Maxwell's work?
Yeah, I read it. Mostly Jordan Maxwell's work is like Michael Tessarian, where they are looking because they think that if you have this symbology on your product, it's going to, like a magic wand, give it an extra oomph. So, yeah, I want to buy Irish Spring. Yeah. Because you got a little sparkly thing from Osiris or something, right?
Well, it goes a lot farther than that. I mean, when you're talking about the two sides of the Illuminati, you've got the fascists and you've got the communists. And that's right. Those are the two wings of the eagle. And so, you can't have one without the other.
Right. And that's the dualistic Hegelian dialectic, which is you create a problem and then you already have a solution in mind and you get the people to do what you wanted all along.
Yeah, and you covered the bases from both angles. So you got the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds, and you're covering the whole 9 yards. But
well, I take it a little bit further as soon as I can get some.
Hello?
I'm sure you're making good points, Gary.
Okay, you're breaking up over here.
I'm sure you made good points. I didn't hear them, though.
No problem. I think we're both silent. I think that the technology is trying to catch up with us. We're having some interference here.
Of course. It's to be expected.
Absolutely.
No, I was just going to say that, no offense, but the people that are type A personality tend to be Rockefeller Illuminati. They're very unforgiving. If you're not working 80 hours a week, you're a slacker. If you're in the way, kill them. That's the type A personality person. It gravitates to Rockefeller fascism. And your type B personality that wants a six-pack, watch the movie, watch football on TV, hug their wife, hug their kids. They're type B personality people, and they tend to say, why don't we have universal health care? The Illuminati's
well, listen, why don't we worship Satan at the same time, and
yeah, they throw that in there, of course.
Yeah, and
Satan's the guy not holding anything back from us.
Yeah,
he's the guy that's given us all this technology.
Pedophilia
say, right?
And torture children and so on, the rest of that. Okay, so I just am giving you your lead here, Mike. So go to your next point. From this point,
well, in the hope that I'm not talking over you, the point of what I'm trying to do is get people to go back and read the James Bond novels and to watch the James Bond movies to look for these symbolisms and actual warnings, because I think that Albert Broccoli was a good man, and I think he took on the James Bond series to warn us, not just to make himself rich.
Okay, great.
And you can find out more by going to jamesbondisforreal.com, which is, go to our James Bond is Real YouTube channel, which is Dynamite Para #2. That comes from when I started in the internet in 97. AOL wouldn't give me enough letters to spell out dynamic para, as in dynamic paratrooper, so I now cannot spell the word dynamic anymore. I got to take the A out. Dynamic. So I'm a Dynamic Para #2, and you go to those videos there, and you'll see that research line. We even got a mini James Bond movie there we made called James Bond is Born last year. I think it's pretty good because we showed it the day that Skyfall was, shown, and we got an ovation. But at the end of Skyfall, I don't like Skyfall. Everyone was dejected, so I was dejected. I don't like Skyfall. It could have been a great movie. We could do a whole program on that one, But I don't want to say too much bad because I want the James Bond series to continue. But now I think I'm free to say what I really think of Skyfall. But the point is, it's a little 6-minute movie, and I think people would enjoy it, when you go to Dynamic Para to watch that James Bond is Born. And we try to set the stage correctly. That Ian Fleming wasn't just a paper pusher and a skirt chaser. He really was James Bond, and he really did go on missions, like busting Martin Bormann out of Berlin in 1945, which we verified by talking to one of the guys that's still alive, who did that mission with him. His name is Christopher Crichton, John Ainsworth Davis.
Great. So just to follow your lead here, Mike, I wanted you to continue here. We do have time for questions, and we have a chat room, and okay. I'm sure that people would like to ask you some questions. But I wondered if maybe there was any other areas you want to touch on, maybe other movies, specific James Bond movies that you want to draw our attention to, where the messages might be a little harder to reach, but well worth maybe a second look.
Well, the movie Moonraker, I was down on for a long period of time, but they did get some good messages in there. They have the evil Drax guy putting these women and men, idealized women and men, on space shuttles, and they go to a space station. And when I saw it, I said, this doesn't make sense. Who wants to be on that space station? It looks crappy, but I wasn't paying attention. They're only going there temporarily off-planet. And so there's a linkage between Moonraker, the movie, and Alternative 3, which is the idea that you just get the people off the planet temporarily so that the crisis can pass. Now, in Moonraker, he creates the crisis by nerve agent poisoning the world. But the point is, the movie makers seem to be connected to the Alternative 3 conspiracy. If there's any validity to that, the idea would be that we have anti-gravity crap. If we do, it should be not a problem to go to Mars and go to the moon in force and have colonies. Now, that's just plain old logic. If we can move through space without having to fight the first 100,000 feet of gravity, we should have moon bases and Mars bases. And that you're not just being crazy or extravagant here. It's button basic military tactical science, sound military tactical science. When you get an advantage, positional advantage, you got to take it. And having a base on the Mars and moon would be a military advantageous position to be in. And darn well our military would do it. That's what I would do. I mean, that's just sound military tactics, to go ahead and outpost the moon and Mars. So that's one place to look. Another place to look is The Saint. Roger Moore in the James Bond series, there's something going on there. The guy that I talked to you before, John Ainsworth Davis, directed some of the series episodes of The Saint. He's good friends with Roger Moore. And in The Saint, they have episodes where they, believe it or not, anticipate the Kennedy assassination. You go to The Saint episode that was aired a month before November 22nd, 1963, called Teresa. It's about a wife looking for her husband who fled after he tried to kill a governmental leader by a high-powered rifle in a building in motorcade. What the hell is going on, people? You've got this aired on national television a month before Kennedy is shot and killed that way on the TV series The Saint. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Is there any other, what about, have you, I think it's called You Only Live Twice. Is there anything about that film? Because,
Of course there is.
okay.
Yeah, the movie You Only Live Twice was written by Raoul Dahl. And Raoul Dahl was part of the British Security Coordination spy ring run by William Stevenson here in the United States. The best book to read on that is called The Irregulars by Janine Conant. And you'll see that Raoul Dahl was a ravishing, rakish figure, and he went around having affairs with Republican women like Claire Booth Luce, who was a hot chick, and he would get them to support England, even though they're right-wing Republican fascists and they love Nazis and Hitler. He would go around using a little sexpionage. So that's the author of You Only Live Twice, the movie. Raoul Dahl, RAF commander, was a spy in World War II. And in that, novel, he has them trying to stage, through a false flag incident, the two superpowers, killing each other in a nuclear war. But the Raoul Dahl story that was, made into a movie script is Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. And in the Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, Raoul Dahl, and you're kind of bummed out. I hate to give away the movie if you haven't seen it in a while. It's a great movie. It's an Ian Fleming child story, right, for his son, Casper. But at the end of the movie, you're kind of bummed out, and you say, oh, it's just a story. The Chitty Chitty Bang Bang really doesn't fly, really doesn't swim, and all that. But at the end of the movie, Raoul Dahl, who wrote the screenplay for the movie, Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, has Chitty Chitty Bang Bang flying by anti-gravity at the end of the movie.
Right. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Very good.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool.
Very cool. Raoul Dahl was also married to Naru Raktu Burita, whatever, what do you call it, the 1950s classic science fiction movie, Patricia Neal, hot chick. I like her. Patricia Neal was in that movie, and, it's a science fiction movie, and she was her, his wife, Patricia Neal. What I'm talking about, escapes me. You know what I'm talking about. The number one science fiction movie of all time in the 50s was
The Day the Earth Stood Still?
The Day the Earth Stood Still, that's right. The Day the Earth Stood Still with Michael Rennie. So anyway, she's in that movie, and I wish I could have interviewed her before she died just a couple years ago, but she was definitely in the know about this Ian Fleming and her husband working together in BSC during the war and afterwards. You got to ask the right questions. These people who have access to these people who have, behind the scenes. I mean, I know what I would ask some of these people if I had my chance. One of them would be Christopher Lee. Christopher Lee is a cousin of Ian Fleming, played golf with him. Christopher Lee was in British Special Operations Executive. We cover that, in our book. But Christopher Lee, if you ask him the right questions, he might be willing to tell you some things that he hasn't told before. He's not offered it. He's not going to go right out and just offer this stuff. But if you ask the right questions, I'm not going to say right now what those questions are because I don't want the other side to inoculate him and say, Christopher Lee, if they ask you about this, don't answer.
Okay.
We don't want to help the other side here. But you see what I'm trying to say is that we're not asking the high technology German defeat questions. Heck, we're not even asking the low technology German defeat questions. I mean, the low technology German defeat is, okay, they got out. We weren't everywhere. They got over on us. They got old and they died in South America, so what? That's low technology German defeat. I don't buy into that. I think they went out of there with high technology and they turned themselves into foreign international corporations. And they are a creature of the Rockefeller Illuminati, and they damn well pose a clear and present danger to our country because they're running our country right now. Our country right now has never been so fascistic.
That's right.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
And the people are not pushing back like they should because the current generation has lost a lot of the hope that the World War II generation had. World War II generation was great. My mom and dad, World War II people. And they said, if you want something, you got to fight for it. Isn't going to be given to you.
Okay.
It's worth too. You might win. But you're certainly not going to win if you don't try.
Absolutely.
This generation doesn't even try.
Well, there's some of us out there still fighting. So let me turn to the audience at this time and open the floor to questions, if you don't mind, Mike.
Go ahead.
Okay, and you're welcome to continue. We can continue along this line whenever there's no questions to be asked, or in the chat. And if there's something that you'd like to talk about that we haven't covered, feel free to volunteer that as well as we go along here.
Mm-hmm. You got it.
Okay. So we have said where to buy your book, but do you want to just repeat it?
Well, you go to jamesbondisforreal.com. And that will take you to the Lulu edition. You can also get it on Amazon. But Lulu is, the fastest to get it.
Okay.
Because it's coming right out of Lulu's, hot off the presses. But you can also get it on Amazon. But I can't give you the internet address because it's gobbledygook, Amazon. It's like left XYZ, parentheses, question mark, I can't give it to you off the top of my head. And same with Lulu. They don't have simplified URLs, so that's why I say just go to jamesbondisforreal.com. Okay,
sounds good. So someone is asking, was Ian Fleming, who wrote the James Bond novels, the same Ian Fleming who played Dr. Watson for a short segment of Sherlock Holmes movies way back in the 40s?
Carrie, if I don't hear the question, you can also type it in the IM box.
Okay.
I'm hearing it now.
Did you hear? Do you want me to repeat the question?
Yes. I try not to use the word repeat because in the military, when you say repeat, that means fire the artillery fire mission again. So try not to use that word repeat.
Okay.
I just did it. Oh my God.
All right. Was Ian Fleming, who wrote the James Bond novels, the same Ian Fleming who played Dr. Watson in a very short segment of Sherlock Holmes movies back in the 40s?
Wow, that's a good trivia question. Did that person go to Internet Movie Database and cross-reference it? I mean, it's possible that Ian Fleming made a cameo appearance. That's new to me.
Okay.
It's possible because he was, a man on the prowl in the 1930s. Very good question. I'll look into it.
Okay. Let's see. Someone's saying your website doesn't seem to be working. I don't know if they're having a problem.
Which one? jamesbondisforreal.com?
I guess so. Maybe they need to try it. I'm trying it here. I think it works. It looks like it's working.
It worked last time I did it.
Yeah, it is working here at my end. So is the URL that was typed into the chat does look like the person there has got it right. So there it is. All right, I'm just seeing if there was any other questions. Strangely, I am saying that someone can ask questions here, but it doesn't look like we've got any other questions offhand. I'm just trying to scroll up and see.
Well, I don't want to, let anyone off the hook here or not get what they want. I'm definitely open. They can always email me their questions later, to paratroop2000@yahoo.com. I'd be delighted to answer the question the best I can in good faith, honestly.
Okay.
What I think the truth is. But there's definitely more things to discuss. But what I'm trying to do in this discussion is create the feeling and the mood of the 1940s and 50s. I think what really is happening here is the Nazis are doing overflights over to the United States to intimidate us. and the American military is coming up with a cover story to save face and keep the American people from demanding action during that vulnerability. We'll say that they're also hiding this technology, zero-point energy, because they don't want us to have energy for free. They want us to be dependent on, gasoline-powered, unsafe gasoline-powered automobiles and trucks to get around. Where they are the Rockefellers. The Rockefellers got rich off oil. So the problem is, I don't totally agree with giving zero-point energy to everybody. Because if Jim Bob breaks up with Billie Jean and says, I hate this world, I'm going to blow the whole world up. If people have got zero-point energy, what's going to stop Jim Bob from blowing the world up? So actually, I kind of agree with the Illuminati on this one. And people can't handle zero-point energy. The Illuminati can't handle it either. Do you understand? I'm being total intellectual honesty here, responsibility. But the point is, if there was some way of getting free energy to the people in a responsible way so they can't blow the planet up, and also not just keep it to the elite so that they can fly their, ever larger and larger anti-gravity craft, which would get them off the planet if the planet is in a crisis. You understand what I'm saying? That's the other extreme, where they keep the technology to themselves for their own selfish reasons. You see what I'm saying? There has to be some kind of, I hate to say it, middle ground here.
Okay. There is a person asking you if you know or have spoken to anyone who's flown the Nazi, the German bells, or what do you know about the German bell? I think would be also a good question.
My opinion is the German bell isn't a flying saucer; it's a time travel machine. That's my take on it. They were trying to do time travel by circulating the mercury. That's my opinion, my gut reaction on it. But to answer his question, they are flying something. William Lynn will say it's not mercury being spun at high temperature and speed. He says it's Tesla electrogravatics, okay? Now, what I've heard, this would be secondhand, so I've heard it from somebody else who interviewed some of these pilots flying anti-gravity craft, is that they die young. Something's happening to their health when they fly these craft that is not good for their health, in terms of just their constitution staying together, not developing cancer. They age, they get gray hair quickly after flying these craft. They are, of course, compartmentalized in the rest of society. The minute they ever speak of any of this stuff, they're dead, and they die in accidents. So the word I have is that the people flying these hot anti-gravity craft, they're trading years off their life to be part of something that they can never brag on. They have to keep to themselves. Maybe the glory of flying to the moon and Mars this way compensates for 20 or 30 years off of your life. But you always got people willing to do stuff, because you've got people right now signing up to go on a one-way mission to Mars. If you looked into that, Carrie, the Mars One mission, where it's like a reality TV show, they will go to Mars in pods, and if they make it, they survive. If they don't, they don't.
Right.
People are so desperate to do something of significance in this life, they're willing to throw their way of their lives to do something like that. That just shows you that the people running the world, the Illuminati, have taken the joy of life away from the common people. Because if our country and the world was doing what we're supposed to be doing, we wouldn't be fighting each other. We would be conquering space. We would be colonizing space. We would be reorganizing the way we live on this planet so we don't kill the planet, ecologically. You understand? We'd be doing something, and doing it in a way that you don't have like baby machines, and we've got too many babies, too many kids, it's 7 billion and rising. The data seems to indicate if your more sophisticated society is, the population growth goes down to like 2 kids per family. The Illuminati don't believe that. They don't believe that the common people have any value, and they need to, cull the herd, so to speak. And that's tragic, because if you have more people, you're more likely to have that Einstein, and William Lynn would wring my neck out for that one because he doesn't like Einstein. But it's just a good a quick way to get your idea across. Your Einstein, Newtons, Faradays, whoever you like is a genius. The more people you have on the planet, the more likely you might have some, right?
Okay, yes. And here's a question for you from the chat. Do you find others in the military that support your point of view?
Well, of course, the answer is yes, but it's not going to be a majority. It tends to be the people who have been frustrated trying to take objective reality and common sense, which should be common sense, but it isn't. If it was common sense, everyone would have it. But there are other people who are frustrated trying to get cause and effect reforms. They will tend to agree with us, in our military reform movement. But I'd say the vast majority of people in the military do not agree with us because they're happy in their doormat position of being in a bureaucracy that tells them what to do, when to do, and how to do it. And they have an illusion that the U.S. military is the greatest, and it's always been great, and we're doing fantastic. These are people which are codependents. They're completely in love with the idea of the bureaucracy always being right, which is fascism. And so they really hate me because I point out that it ain't true. I destroy their golden calf, their sacred cow, and that's why I'm so hated, because I'm doing it in good faith. I'm trying to build a military full of adults who know that they have worth intrinsically, doesn't need the organization saying, you're a good person, you're a Marine, you're a paratrooper, you're a Ranger. No, you are you. And that brings to the table unique skills that we need. I'm not going to turn you into a robot and, white you out, erase you and make you into something. You already are somebody. But anyway, that kind of military is a profession where the people in the military as a professional think they see what's going on and they act on that. They don't just say the colonel says that the emperor, in this case, commanding officer, has got a three-piece suit on when he's naked. Sir, he's naked. Objectivity should not go out the window. A profession is objective. A profession of professionals always have their eyes open. So to be intellectually honest, I would not say the majority of the people in the U.S. military are strong people who are adults. I think the majority of the people in the military are weak codependents who want to desperately believe and actually worship the organization like a religion. That's why we're in the mess that we're in, because they must desperately fit in for them to have self-worth. The minute, they deviate from the organization, the bureaucracy, they could have the rug pulled out for them and they're no longer in the service, or they're no longer in a high esteem in the service. So that's why we're in the mess we're in. We're really in a deep trouble in the U.S. military because we're degenerating into mentalism where we think that we have computers and we can just digitize any problem or situation. We've got it under control. Meanwhile, physically, we're not off roads. We're not evading the landmines. We're not evading the precision-guided munitions, which the enemy can also shoot at us. We're not physically strong. We're just mouse-clicking it away and deceiving ourselves with delusions. Well, we've got that under control because we made a new acronym to describe this problem. Well, excuse me, sir, the acronym is not going to stop the precision-guided munition, top-attack munition blowing us up.
Right. All right, Mike, I've got another question for you here in the chat. Are you familiar with the Able Danger crime scene investigators?
Yeah, but shouldn't that be the 9/11 people that were? Well, maybe I'm getting mixed up with the group that was listening into the alleged Islamic, transmissions going before 9/11. Is this the Able Danger? Is just the crash scene recovery UFO people?
Yeah.
The crash scene, flying saucer malfunctions and they recover it.
I guess maybe they're talking about Field McConnell and David Hodkins, who do forensic analysis. They're calling them U.S. Marines. They're putting the site, their website's called abledanger.net. I'm not sure why they're asking you that, but are you familiar with those two guys? I think they do a radio show or something like that, because I recall talking with them in the past.
No, I don't know of them, but it could be just the grassroots realization that we need some, military reform. I mean, I can look them up right now. He says abledanger.net.
Well, no, they're people who do a lot of analysis and put a lot of pieces together. Maybe he thought that perhaps you might look into their research and see how it might augment your own. Okay, in terms of if you're aware of the bell and the Nazi bell, how far have you dug into that device and what was really going on with it? Because I have some back channel information about that. Mike?
Yeah, I'm listening to you right now. I was going to comment that I know everything that Joseph Farrell has done looking at it. And then you've got the situation where a New Zealand researcher has looked at it. He thinks that the bell is an attempt at nuclear power.
Okay, but
the problem with the bell is...
In your own case, I was wondering, you think it's a time travel device, right?
I know that the ancient texts talk about using mercury and circulating it. So that is the kind of connection to maybe the bell being used for anti-gravity craft. I don't want to throw that away, that factoid.
Yeah,
but it just seems like the way Farrell describes it, it looks to me like they're trying to stop time or they're trying to destroy matter, absolutely destroy matter.
Okay, I have to say that I agree with you that it's a time travel device.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's what I think. It just looks like, for one thing, it's too heavy, used as a center of a aerospace craft. Not doing anything to make it lighter.
Have you visited? Actually, we visited one of the bells, the sites of the construction of one of the bells in Poland. Have you been to any of those?
Right? Witkowski,
Yes, Igor Witkowski.
Right.
Have you ever talked to him?
No, I had somebody talk in between us. I talked to someone who talked to him, but we were just working on counter, basically libel on his case. People were just criticizing him, and I was passing on some pointers to stop that. I hate that when people attack somebody who's reporting in good faith what they see is happening. I think he's, it's the thing where they see the arches and they're saying, no, that's not a Venus flytrap to hold a flying saucer at hover. It's just a cooling column. You know what I'm saying? The debunkers are always, coming around and trying to say these things, but then they don't bother to explain the weirdness factor. Why in the middle of World War II are they building these cooling towers, in Eastern Europe?
Oh, yeah. And they're huge.
Yeah, you know what I mean? They throw out the context and then they nitpick. I use this as an example. Prove to me, Mike, that there's chocolate chip cookies in the supermarket. The nitpicking debunkers will say, give me a row where the chocolate chip cookies are. And if you say they're in row 8, the debunkers will walk down there and say, look, row 8 is macaroni and cheese. There are no chocolate chip cookies here. You're full of it. Everything you say is bogus. You're a liar. They just go into the whole character assassination thing. Meanwhile, the truth of the matter may be that the chocolate chip cookies aren't on any row. They're on an end cap. You see what I mean? I try to use that analogy of how these people are. Life is not going to be perfectly documented by a paper trail. You and I and everyone on the planet, we don't write a memorandum every time we go to the bathroom. I went to the bathroom at 09:25. I stayed there for 7 minutes and 25 seconds. I used 5 percent of my roll of toilet paper during this trip. Then you got to have a sign. I mean, come on, no one lives their life that way. You see what I'm saying? Now, these debunkers, 8 over 10 of people try to turn life into some kind of giant legal test like that. It's absurd.
Right.
And they're just trying to nitpick. They're just trying to find something wrong to discredit the person and overthrow everything that they said.
Okay, I'm curious. Okay, Mike, can you hear me okay? Because I want to ask you a question.
All right.
I want to know if in the James Bond movies you see signs that Ian Fleming would have been familiar with some of the Nazi research into time travel.
Well, of course, I think you're saying, is Ian Fleming familiar with the Nazi escape?
No, I'm asking if Ian Fleming would have picked up indications that the Nazis were doing advanced research into time travel.
Oh, the time travel thing. I'd have to go back and relook. See, it's like layers of an onion.
Yes.
Maybe he is saying that. Now, the first thing that comes to my mind, research hunch, is You Only Live Twice, the book. In the book, You Only Live Twice, Fleming talks about 1111. You know what I'm talking about? The 1111, the numerology. Yes. Which is Philip Gardner does the first stab at Ian Fleming symbolism in his book. From a supernatural perspective, my look is into hardware, military, technological hardware. Phil Gardner is into the supernatural. Okay. Michael Tessarian and Maxwell are more into the supernatural kind of thing. But I'm not, blind to that stuff. If you look at You Only Live Twice, there's mention of the clock. When James Bond is on the throne, it's a chair. It's got volcanic eruption going to spout out. And if he doesn't talk by a certain time, he's going to get burned up. He's pretending he's a mute Japanese worker. Hoping not ruin the story for anyone reading the book. But anyway, it's a great story. But anyway, James Bond adventure. The point is, I think there's something of time travel in You Only Live Twice. Because that's the last book we know he wrote completely. The Man with the Golden Gun, he may not have actually finished it. But the last book for sure was You Only Live Twice, and he's got James Bond escaping the Castle of Death, which is a metaphor, obviously, for life. But he escapes the Castle of Death on a balloon, which floats away, and then the balloon bursts, and he's falling, and he has a concussion and amnesia, and he is saved by the girl, Kissy Suzuki. They have a child together. So you see what I'm trying to say? I think time stops for James Bond in You Only Live Twice. So you brought up something I didn't realize, that if the Nazis were trying to do time travel with the bell, and Ian Fleming recovered the documents from the Germans, then he must have read something about it. And Ian Fleming takes everything he reads and puts it somewhere in a James Bond story. Okay, he's like equal opportunity opportunist. He puts names of people he hates, people he likes. You know what I'm trying to say? Yes. Names, fixes, people, events. So that would not be any different. So maybe I should go back and I'll see what I can come up with from You Only Live Twice for time travel, to see if Ian Fleming is warning us the heat, from the volcanic eruption could be a metaphor for the bell, the superheated Mercury.
Okay, yes. Well, let me say, at my time travel conference that I had in April, I related some information about the Nazis, and that they were able to, supposedly have been able to basically bring people back from the parallel universe, and also reverse age, and also use much longevity, some form of longevity, whether it be through time traveling, reverse aging, or even a sort of taking a body and reconstituting it in some form or fashion. In other words, I have a witness who's telling me this information, and I've now gotten 2 other documented sources that are corroborating this information. In other words, that Nazis really did learn a great deal about time travel and are in fact using it even today.
They would, why wouldn't they? They're opportunistic. They're opportunists. The thing is that this is the evil science that Winston Churchill talked about. He said the evil, dark science of the Nazis, meaning that if you give somebody time, unlimited resources, a secret place to be doing this stuff, no moral compunctions about what they're doing, they're going to crack some of these problems. That's what's so scary about what's going on, is that these mad scientists might blow up the world. So thank God there is a God in heaven, and he's going to put his foot down when these people get too far. But until then, we have to stop them ourselves, because nothing is stopped from their eyes in attempting it. And they just say it's all a matter of, Thomas Edison persistence. What do you call it? 99% perspiration, 1% inspiration. They've got that 99% down. They're just going to keep cracking the whip until they break the code on something. And it's all based on Tesla physics, which are sound.
Okay, there's another question.
Get the Tesla secrets and put it out there to the world. I'm not saying that because it's dangerous. But obviously what's happened is that the U.S. government and the Nazis are keeping Tesla technology to themselves. So what are we going to do? We've got to stop them somehow. If we can't stop them with their high technology, we got to get them on the low end. That's what we did in World War II. We overran their labs. But the American public has to put their foot down on this stuff. And the reason why they haven't put their foot down is that obviously they don't think that it's bad. They actually think, they wink at it, wink and nod, say, okay, you talk to the aliens, and you get the technology for them, and they'll get eternal life out of them while you're talking to them, okay? And we'll let you do whatever you want. You can have your black budget. Just get us immortality and a better internet and better cell phones, and we'll leave you alone. And that's, unfortunately, the American public's attitude on this. They don't understand that there's spiritual consequences for this, because it's bait and switch. The evil one, Satan, will give you 20 or 30 more years of your life if you denounce God. And on a metaphysical level, to get you damned, he'll do that. In the military, we call that delaying action. A rear guard action. So a lot more is at work here, and people need to give the Judeo-Christian explanation a chance. What do you got to lose? From a tactical perspective, you've got to try everything and see what works. So why not give those Bible bangers a chance?
Okay.
They might just be right.
All right. Well, let me ask you.
Whatever works, use it. Find out.
Okay, Mike, I've got another question for you here.
But there's time travel in the Bible. You can go to Jim Wilhelmsen's Echoes of Enoch website, and you can go to his YouTube channel, Alternative Reality 7. We're not fighting this war at a disadvantage. We've got God on our side, and you can read about time travel in the Bible.
Okay.
They get spooked.
Okay, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I've got another question for you from the chat, and then we're going to have to wrap this up. We've been going for about 2 hours here.
Okay.
We've got somebody wanted to ask you, what about the relationship between Ian Fleming and the British Crown Empire, the City of London Corporation?
Right. It's the basic classic argument that he was a loyalist to the crown, that therefore he really wasn't working for the people. He's working for them. At face value, he is a crown, loyal crown member working for them. But the point of his writing is when you read the character of James Bond in the novels, you see that he always sides for the people. He doesn't side for the crown. If there's a moral issue involved, he's always siding with the people. And I think that's literally a hint that that's the way Fleming himself was. that if he had to choose between doing what the Crown wants and the City of London banksters, Ian Fleming is going to choose the people. If it was up to me, I would change the oath of everybody in the British government. When they take an oath to defend the Queen and all that stuff. I change that somehow to some kind of symbolic, be nice to them, respect them. But I'd change the wording and have them take an oath to do what's best for the English, the United Kingdom people. I would change that. Frankly, I think that wording in that's bad because they've abused that to say, well, we're the Crown. We're telling you to do this dastardly deed. You took an oath to follow that. That's inherently evil. The British people have suffered so much, they deserve some kind of glory. So let them have their crane and their pomp and circumstance, but just don't have running the country. You know what I mean? Don't have these people running the country.
All right. So, Mike, I want to thank you very much for coming on the show with me tonight, and it's been great having you and going over all of this history. You absolutely have your research down pat, and you're a wonderful asset. And I'd love to have you back, and love to do this again, maybe with some other people that are also researching some of the same things, and get a good discussion going again on these topics. So do you want to give your website out one more time?
Right, I lost your audio there.
Okay.
I got it.
I was thanking you for being on the show.
Yes, I thank you for having me on the show.
Okay.
Your people are on the cutting edge. Your people have the courage to tackle unpleasant issues, scary issues of the paranormal. They are James Bond citizens. So I salute your readers and your listeners and viewers.
Okay, and would you like to give out your website one more time? I've got your YouTube channel up here.
Okay, it's jamesbondisforreal.com.
Okay, and
they could read lips. Let me see if they can do it. Okay, try to read my lips. No new taxes. No. jamesbondisforreal.com.
Okay, and your YouTube channel is Dynamic Para 2. We've got it on the screen right now for those.
Yeah, it's just dynamic. It's Dynamic Para, but without the A.
Right.
AOL ruined my spelling of that word forever. So it's Dynamic Para.
Okay.
DYNAMICPARA 2, number 2.
Okay, thank you very much, and good night, everyone. Thank you for listening.
All right, thanks for having me here.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Mm-hmm.